What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I got some new news concerning Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Gennady Golovkin has rejected an offer to fight Billy Joe Saunders in June. Due to the reason is the fight becomes it's too early for Saunders because he's suffering from a hand injury. Okay, so he wouldn't be ready by that particular date. And of course, Gennady Golovkin, wants to fill that slot from the fifth. So, the time differentiates everything. The time difference from when Billy Joe Saunders wants to fight, which I don't even see why a offer really would be made if he has a hand injury. I think you have three guys with hand injuries. You have Keith Thurman, you have Terrence Crawford, and then now you have Billy Joe Saunders. Boxers, they tend to hurt their hands, especially if they, when they're training and they either hit the bag wrong. A lot of times the bag, is the reason for them hurting their hands, not really mitts, but the bag itself. I think those trainers should really invest in taking some of that stuffing out of the bag, because a lot of times those bags are too hard. That's what causes fighters to slap with a lot of their punches, because they got so used to, so accustomed to slapping the body bag, to the point where they do that in fights, because of how you're training, exactly how you're going to fight, and then when you get fatigued, you're going to even fight sloppier, and less accurate than you would, from the beginning, from the get-go. So, but anyway, back to Saunders, it could be a possible fight here in September. Which, if you look at that, it's everything is still depending on Canelo Alvarez. What will happen to the fate of Canelo Alvarez due to the drug allegations? Because if they suspend him 6 months, which I think they're only going to suspend him 6 months, that's my personal opinion. But if it goes past a year, that could free up his schedule. Okay, and of course, Gennady Golovkin is going to jump for the opportunity to fight Canelo, which I would totally be against it at that point, because, you got a guy now that's 36, it's 36 years, 6 months into being 37. So he's 36 and a half technically, and then you want to fight a guy that's still fresh and young. By that time, Canelo Alvarez will be 28, but he's still 28 years old. That's still young. You're still in your prime. You're having the bulk of your success and your activity, physically, at that particular ages. You know what I mean? That's your peak. Okay, so I don't think that I would want to see that. However, I think he has just the hardest fight with Billy Joe Saunders, because Billy Joe Saunders is the same age. Him and Canelo are the same exact age. They're both 27, 28 years old, late 20s, So I feel that either one of those guys will be, a pretty big challenge for Gennady Golovkin. Gennady Golovkin, it's strange about him. It's funny about Gennady Golovkin. He's a guy that wanted fights over the years and couldn't get the fights that he wanted. Okay. The Stern fight. He wanted a fight with Stern. He wanted to fight with Sergio Martinez. He wanted to fight with the Russian that knocked out Danny Jacobs. I can't remember his name right now, but it'll come to me, I'm sure. But he wanted all these fights, okay? And he never was able to get them. The Chris Eubanks fight fell through. He stopped Lemieux, so that was a pretty good fight. But then now Billy Joe Saunders kind of, outboxes Lemieux. So that loses credibility to a certain fighter, to a certain standard, simply because now you have a common fighter and you have a fighter in common that you've both beat. And Billy Joe Saunders, outboxed him 12 rounds because he's a boxer. Okay. He likes to move. He's a southpaw. He's slick, but he turns it on when he wants to turn it on. So, but that kind of loses your credibility when you've already beat that guy. You know what I mean? Because that's another name that's on your record that someone else has beaten. So, in essence, in a sense, it loses its credibility, So, but so Gennady Golovkin has now, ironically, you know, got the fights or getting the fights that he wants. Now everyone wants a piece of him. After the Danny Jacobs fight, people wanted to fight him by the truckload, by the floodgates. The Charlos, Andrade, Danny Jacobs again. You had, Billy Joe Saunders now wants to fight him, and before he claimed that he made statements to him regarding him and Chris Eubank Jr. that he'll beat us both on the same night. Now you want to fight him because people see the age in a fighter. All you have to do is just just check a fighter out. Research a fighter. You can observe on how a guy has missed a step. He's not as tenacious as he was. I could tell it. I could tell it in the Canelo fight. I seen traces of it in the Danny Jacobs fight. So these fights are to get made strategically by time. Time beats everybody. I will say it again and again. Yeah, your power is the last thing to go, but you know what the first thing to go is? Your skill. I mean, and when I say your skill, your speed, okay? Your timing, your distance. Those things begin to go first, and you notice them because you start slipping. Those are the signs of slipping, and they only get worse and deteriorate over time. So, if he's going to fight one of these guys, by God, it has to be right now. And, Billy Joe Saunders he's in the same age as Canelo. So he's in his peak season. He's in the peak of his career. Okay. So these guys can afford to party or do whatever, but then they can still fight at a certain level. Okay. Because they are at the peak of their level. So Gennady Golovkin has to do something. He has to do it fast. I said the same thing about Manny Pacquiao. I'm going to say it about Golovkin. Golovkin is not as old as Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao will be 39 and 30. No, he will be 40. Okay. So Manny Pacquiao will be 40 because I know they're all a year older than me or 2 years older than me. So yeah, Gennady Golovkin has to do something when he still can. I don't want Gennady Golovkin to go out like Erislandy Lara, like Ortiz, like Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Okay, we don't want those type of fights because those fights came too late in those guys' career when they should have been earlier. Just a little brief example about that. Julio Cesar Chavez, when he sparred with De La Hoya, he was able to drop De La Hoya because that particular De La Hoya, it wasn't De La Hoya, it was Chavez. Chavez still had the youth, and the aura of invincibility at the time that he could still fight at that speed set because he was at himself. You know what I mean? He was still the man's in them. Okay. So he could take out Oscar De La Hoya, but a couple years later, you let that slide by. He was not able to do that. And we've seen that in two different occasions and two different fights. So I just don't want that happening to Gennady Golovkin because there's too many fighters that has happened to, and it's sad. And I hate to see those type of fights because you see a guy that's in their prime fighting a guy that is not. Okay. Timing is everything. Nothing beats time. Nothing's more important than time, especially in the boxing game. Okay. So, again, Gennady Golovkin has to do something first. I see him taking the Canelo fight over the Billy Joe Saunders fight. Because it's just a bigger fight with more money. It's a better business decision because I think that Gennady Golovkin's focus has shifted from obtaining all the belts to the fight purses, to making the most money. Because you really don't hear him say that anymore. He used to say, I want all the belts. Now you don't really hear him say it as much. Now it's, I want Canelo. So that's just something that, to think about. But you guys tell me what you think. You guys give me your opinions on what Gennady Golovkin should do. Leave your comments below. Please subscribe. Until then, you guys been counterpunched. Peace.